I want to welcome everyone who is joining us for the Discover ISU Day in the Americas. The Discover ISU Day in Europe has just concluded, and it was a great turnout from what I could see. And maybe some people are staying for this one, so I'm excited. Ours is a little bit different format. I'm going to give you an idea what we're going to do. My name is Gary Martin. I'm the Vice President of North American Operations for the International Space University, and I'll be the host today. I'll try to guide you through our program. Our program is in two parts. The first part is an hour where we're going to introduce you to the leadership of ISU, and then we're going to go in depth about the different programs. And so you can see all the different programs and things like that and talk about scholarships and things like that. And then we're going to have people who are alumni from those programs talk about their experiences. And then you'll get some ideas about things you might have questions about and things you want to know about from their experiences and from the people who talk about the programs. And so we're going to have Zoom rooms where you can go for the second half of this program, thing we're going to do this morning. And I hope that you go with questions and talk and interact with the people that you are here with today. And we're going to start right away, and we're going to start with the president of ISU, Juan Dalmal. He has a multidisciplinary background in mechanical engineering, business administration, space studies, and languages, and has well over 35 years of international management experience in engineering, operations, technology development, education, and communications. He's worked in the private sector, he's worked in universities, he's worked in space agencies, so he's got a really broad background. But the most important part of it, he's one of our earliest alumni of ISU. He was in the Space Studies program in 1989. So Juan, would you like to take it from here?
Thank you very much, Gary. I am impressed by how well communications work. Gary, if you allow me to introduce you as the Vice President of ISU for North America, despite the beautiful background that you have with the Strasbourg Cathedral, I believe you are not exactly in Strasbourg, you are in California, unless you moved last night, which you haven't. And I am speaking to you all from Strasbourg, France, where the Isu Central Campus is. In fact, the Central Campus was an idea by the three founders in the vision they had for the evolution of an international space university. I hope you can see the three founders, maybe not in a very clear picture, but they are on this historic picture just above my head in the Pioneers Hall that was taken back in 1987. And some of you might recognize where this is in Washington, DC, I believe. They organized a founding conference in Boston, Massachusetts at MIT in '87, where they convinced a group of decision makers from space agencies, corporations, and universities from around the world that in the middle of the Cold War, it was necessary to have a space university that would prepare the promising professionals for a peaceful exploration and development of space. So 33 years later, here we are, following the vision of these three young people who were below 30 at that time. They imagined an itinerant space program that would go around the world. And this has been happening every year since then, except for last year where we were virtual. So in some way, we started moving out of this planet already last summer, which was one of the steps in the vision of the founders to have a university who would be teaching from space. So we're getting there. Obviously, some of our alumni are astronauts, so they are teaching us from space. And one of the most recent ones was Jessica Mayer, who spent a few sessions with our students while she was on board the International Space Station. So we would like to welcome you all here at Central Campus in person or virtually, so that we can show you around and you can get the feeling of this unique university that changes people's lives. Believe it or not, it changes people's lives personally and professionally. With this, I think Gary and Katrina have prepared a menu for us with people who will tell us how their lives were changed. Over to you from Strasbourg.
And absolutely, that's true. Thank you very much, Juan. It does change people's lives, which is why I got so excited about it. And I do want to say that Katrina and I put together this part for Discover ISU Americas. So, and I'm going to introduce Katrina later when she gives a testimonial about her experience. The next person I'd like to invite to talk is Professor Chris Welch. He is the director of ISU's World Recognized Master's Program and head of ISU's Space Payloads Laboratory. He has a PhD in spacecraft engineering and a master's in science and space physics. His research interests are in space propulsion, space exploration, microgravity physics. He is a former chair of UK's Space Education Council, and he is a council member of the British Interplanetary Society. He is a frequent commentator of space and astronautics, so you might have heard or seen him. He has made more than 300 television and radio broadcasts, and he also advises a number of space-related television programs and films. And something I want to point out right before Chris begins his talk is that all these people will be available for you to talk to later in the second portion of our talk. I have questions specifically for them. So Chris, would you like to talk about the program?
Okay, thank you very much, Gary. Pleasure to be here. I've got 3 minutes now, so this is going to be fairly fast. We can go into more detail later on. Key point to know about the MSS, the MSc in Space Studies, is like all of ISU's programs, it focuses on what we call the 3 I's, which are core to ISU's approach. So we are interdisciplinary, international, and intercultural. And when we say that we're interdisciplinary, we mean that we study space engineering, space sciences, human performance in space, space applications, management and business, policy and economics and law, and the space humanities as well. And that's the same across all the programs. The MSS program itself, its core is its first year, year A, which all students do. There's also an optional and selective year B. But the overall aims for the program are to create an interdisciplinary, international, intercultural masters for highly motivated students from a diverse range of educational, cultural, and professional backgrounds. And that's what ISU is about in so many ways, is diversity. And what we hope to do here in Strasbourg, where the MSS is based, is to deliver this high quality program, 3 I's across the space domain, to allow all the students on it to achieve their full potential, while at the same time maintaining, promoting, building their networks, so that when they graduate, they can go off and they can change the space world. That's a common thing you find across all ISU alumni, whichever program they do. They want to change the world in some way, and we want to give them the tools to do it. So I guess the key difference between the MSS and some of the other programs is obviously it's much longer. It's a year or 2 years long, depending. And there is a mandatory internship of at least 3 months, sometimes 6 months, can occasionally go to 12, which you have to do, where we try and place you, ideally in the space organization that you would like to be in, so that you can use the skills that you have developed on the academic part of the program and start to apply them in the real world. Obviously, just at the moment, in terms of the coronavirus, it's difficult to send people out. In fact, the MSS itself is operating remotely at the moment, and last year we had to do a lot of remote internships. But eventually the pandemic will be over, and once again we will be able to spread out around the world. So that's my 3-minute summary of the MSS. So thanks, Garrett.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I hope you all take advantage that Chris will be here later in the breakout room, and you'll be able to talk to him directly about the questions you have about the program. Next, I would like to introduce Arif Göktuğ Karakalioğlu. And he is the director of two of the space studies programs, the Space Studies Program and the Southern Hemisphere Space Study Program, as well as our new virtual program, the Interactive Space Program. He is an alumni of SSP 2010, and he worked as a participant liaison with me in SSP 13 there at the Central Campus. And he joined the MSS class to get a master's in 2014. And then through those connections, he actually came and did an internship and stayed at NASA Ames Research Center where I was working. And he worked on small spacecraft and space debris mitigation projects for 2 years. And now he has supported ISU programs almost every year since that time. And he's known as an energetic, inspirational leader. So Göktuğ, would you like to?
Hi, Gary. Thank you so much for this very kind introduction. Greetings, everyone, from the Isu Central Campus as well, where Juan is based, but at a different location. So I'm currently located at the Concurrent Design Facility, which our master's program use. So it's even a bigger challenge for me because, as Gary mentioned, I'm the director for 3 programs. So maybe I should just separate 1 minute for each of these programs. But let's dive into it. So the 3I concept, as you have already heard, is definitely true for the SSP, SHSSP, and the ISP programs as well, that we are really targeting an international, interdisciplinary, and intercultural audience, as well as our pool of experts. So the main difference of these summer programs compared to MSS is what we call a live-in experience. This is when you come to, for example, SSP, for the 9 weeks, you are always together with the cohort of, let's say, 120 people plus another 200 experts. So you actually, of course, study together, but also you eat together, and you discuss things in the evening events. So all the experts are staying at the same location as the participants. So this really facilitates the interaction between all the experts who are coming to lecture, but also intercultural experiences within the participants themselves, which is very critical. I mean, this is not the classroom approach is not that critical. The off classroom approach is really critical in today's world, as you can see. So again, similar to MSS in a way, the SSP program do not dives into the academics as much as MSS, but more targets the participants from the networking point of view. And more particularly, we actually teach them to speak the same language, the language of space. So whatever your background is, whether you're an engineer or a lawyer or a scientist or a journalist, it doesn't matter. At the end of any of our programs, you really are at a level of knowledge to understand the discussions of any profession in space that is not your own background. And this is definitely true for the SSP program as well. So the SSP itself runs for 9 weeks. So we have the first part of it as the core phase, which we give the information. The second part of it, we divide the class into 7 disciplines of ISU, which is our let's say, specialization or mini specialization phase. And the final page is your team project session, which you actually have time to work with a group of 30 people for SSP and a smaller group for SHSSP and produce a quality report that you will then go and present to conferences like IAC or meetings like UN. So with that, I would like to switch from here to SSP and then ISP. SHSSP is particularly a reduced version of the SSP program, which is running for 5 weeks. Yes, it is held in Australia, but it is not only targeted to the audience in Australia. So we more and more see more Europeans and the Americans coming in to that program. That really depends on your availability. If maybe July, August is not your time to take a leave, and January and February works the best, so then SHSSP is really to go program for you. And finally, switching to ISP, here is our brand new offering. And the same mentality applies there. So we do not create that program as a big MOOC course where you can go and at your pace, watch the pre-recorded material and go through the assignments. It's not what we envisioned. Rather, we try to create the same interactivity. And this is what we are really specializing in at this moment. And this is really the future for the education itself. ISP is a very private course for an exclusive group of people of 30, 40 participants, and all the activities are run live with the same experts coming and teaching with a very engaging structure program who are also lecturing in SSB and SHSSB. And finally, I would like to mention for all of these three programs, SSB, SHSSB, and ISP, we have started a mentorship program, which is an add-on and which is part of the curriculum, where the participants have time to directly interact one-on-one with the ISU mentors. They have actually 10 slots to select whichever mentor who are in our pool of experts, and then they have their one-on-one slot with these mentors during the program, which we are getting a very, very good feedback so far, and it will be part of these programs as well in the future. With that, I think I will conclude here. I will be there in the SSB, SHSSB, ISB breakout room for getting more questions. Thank you very much. Gary, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gaktu. That's great. Now is the part of the program where we're going to tell you about all the programs that ISU does and give you some ideas that how people can join our programs and where they're taught and things like that. So all the details. And the person that's going to do that is Nassim Bouvet. And he is the head of admissions and alumni affairs. So for you, this audience, he is one of the main people you want to talk to during this opportunity. But in addition, he has a master's in electrical engineering and a master's in business administration. He is also an alumni of ISU Master's Program in Space Studies. And during that program, he got to do 3 parabolic flights on the Airbus Zero-G aircraft. So these are the kinds of things people get to do during our programs. And he worked for 3 months at NASA Kennedy Space Center on space shuttle payload integration, a great experience. So again, he is the person that you really want to listen to. He's going to give you a lot of good information, and I welcome Nassim. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gary. So let me please share my screen. There we go. All right. So first, my apologies for the people attending this Discover ISU who are doing what we call the marathon, Discover ISU marathon, which means they are doing both sessions, European and American. So I will do the similar presentation I did before, but what comes afterwards is different. So please stay on with us. So ISU was founded in 1987 by these 3 founders, visionary founders, I would say. And Bob Richards was with us a moment ago. And just to give you a few milestones about the university, in 1988, the first space studies program took place at MIT. And then in 94, ISU relocated to Strasbourg. Many cities in the world actually bid to welcome the headquarters of the International Space University, and Strasbourg was chosen. In 1995, the first Master in Space Studies program began in Strasbourg. In 2002, several years later, the new official building of ISU, built for us by the Strasbourg community, opened. In 2003, we had our first executive space course in Strasbourg. I'll go more in detail later on what is the ESC. Since 2004, we have been officially accredited by the French Ministry of Education. In 2011, the first Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program took place. J2 Goktug, the program director, mentioned this program. We needed to have one in the South Hemisphere in addition to the North Hemisphere one. Since 2015, we have a second year for the MSS year B, for those who want to do a research thesis. Since 2019, we have a commercial space program held in Florida in collaboration with the Florida Institute of Technology. Also in 2019, we launched the Isu Incubator and Booster, which is an opportunity for us to help all our alumni who wants to start their own space company. So we provide them with like free offices for 3 years. We also help them to go through the rounds of funding for their new space venture. And finally, in 2020, we had to adapt to the context. And as mentioned before, we had our first interactive space program online. You've heard a lot about the 3 I's in previous presentations, so I won't go more in depth here. I would like to really insist on the fact that ISU is a competitive edge to start a career in the space sector. It's a door opener to the space sector, as we say, which is a small world. And our statistics show that more than 80% of ISU alumni work in the space sector today. And really, it gives you, after attending ISU, a membership in a huge international network of leading space experts and professionals. We never insist so much as it's so important is the network of ISU for your space career. So to sum up the ISU academic programs, you've heard a bit from Professor Chris Welch, about the Master of Space Studies. Again, this is a 1-year program always held at the Isu Central Campus in Strasbourg with an optional 2nd year for research thesis. The Space Studies Program, SSP, usually a 2-month program held every summer in a different country, except this year, where we are exceptionally offering it in 3 different locations. Again, we adapt to the context. So it will be held in Granada, Spain, in Strasbourg, France, and there will be also the opportunity to do it remotely with a slightly shorter version, which will be 6 weeks program. We mentioned, of course, the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program. It's a 5-week program, usually always in Adelaide, Australia, in partnership with UniSA in South Australia. Exceptionally, it's taking place online in 2021. It's taking place right now. We're in the middle of it. I mentioned the commercial space program. So this 6 weeks program held in Florida together with FIT. I will not go too much in depth regarding this program because we are lucky enough today to have with us Aldrin, who will present to us in detail the opportunity that you can do when you follow this program. The Executive Space Course, it's a program especially tailored for space professionals. It's a short program, 1 week, and it's held 3 times per year in France, in Strasbourg, in Australia, in Canberra, in the USA, in Seattle. And we are now offering also some tailored courses in specific organizations, in addition to those 3 ESCs. Let us speak now a bit about the Space Studies Program host sites. As you can see on this map, from 1988 to 2021, we have been many times in North America, where it all started. Many times in Europe, where we are now based, a few times in Asia, and a couple of times in the South Hemisphere, but we now have our dedicated program for the South Hemisphere. The next SSP, this is which might be of interest to you, as I mentioned, will be in 2021 in Granada, Spain, and Strasbourg, France. The latest Space Studies program which took place on site was the SSP 2019, because last year in 2020, it was the ISP, the interactive program. So a typical SSP welcomes about 120 participants from 30 to 35 countries, and they really come from all the areas on the globe. In terms of backgrounds, we have usually about half of the participants who are engineers, and then the other half come from all the other backgrounds. So we always welcome, in particular, non-technical backgrounds, because we want to keep the diversity at ISU, and multidisciplinarity is really one of the key aspects at ISU. My friend Göktürk, the program director of SSP, already mentioned a bit about the different structure of SSP, but again, so it's a 9-week program divided roughly in 3 phases, with morning core lectures and workshops in the first phase, departments in the second phase, and team project in the third phase. You can usually choose between 4 and 5 team projects, depending on the size of the class. So you can always find something either about space exploration or about Earth observation, something which is really your interest. Here are the SSP departments: Space Business and Management, Human Performance in Space, Space Policy and Law, Physical Science, Space Applications, Engineering, and Humanities. We mentioned the Southern Hemisphere program. It's taking place now and we will finish on 19 February 2021, but you can already apply for SHSSP 22. A word on the masters now. You heard already from Professor Chris Welch, but roughly we are looking for the master class around 40 to 45 students from 20 to 25 countries, again, coming from all over the world. In terms of background, it's quite similar to the SSP. Half are engineers and the other half is composed of all the other backgrounds. The MSS program structure over 1 year, 12 months. The first module, which is 2 months, is an introduction to space. And then you have 3 modules in parallel. So you go more in depth in all the space disciplines. You also have team projects, which you can choose from 2 team projects, usually in the master. And you have an individual project, which you pursue. And then you have an electives module where you can choose 1 or 2 electives, usually 2 electives, so you can focus on aspects of space which interest you more. And finally, the internship, which you can do in one of our partner organizations worldwide. The team projects, again, can be anything from space explorations to how to help the Earth with space technologies. If you come to our headquarters in Strasbourg, you'll have access to all our ISU facilities. We have for radio astronomy an X-band antenna. We have a concurrent design facility, which allows you to design spacecraft much more efficiently. We have a tracking and ground station to track satellites. We have a real space capsule proven to fly. We will just need to find a launcher and we could launch some of our students in it. Some people are actually considering it. And we have a real self-deployable habitat for extreme environments. It's basically a little station you use to simulate future Moon and Mars missions, basically analog missions. In terms of research projects which are in space, which has been designed by our students, we have 3. We had 3, Hydra 1, 2, and 3, which were launched to the ISS, and one of them will, the last one, will return to Earth in 2022, in January. I would like to mention the Isu Incubator and Booster, which is hosted at the Isu Central Campus. We want our alumni to be able to start their space companies. And this way we are offering them some free offices for up to 3 years. And we help them to find funding for their space ventures. Right now, in 2021, we are very happy to have reached the symbolic threshold of 5,000 ISLMs from over 110 countries. So this is a huge network of space experts and professionals covering all the continents. Of course, you heard many times already about Jessica Meir. We are extremely proud of her, but we have so many more alumni in very interesting positions everywhere in the space sector. In North America, we have a lot of them working for NASA centers, of course. We have some of them working at Boeing, Lockheed Martin, but also in all the new space companies. We have alumni working as directors at SpaceX, at Virgin Galactic, at Blue Origin. We have alumni who are founders of successful space company like Planet, for example. Actually, the co-founder of Planet is one of my classmates for MSS from MSS 01. The same in Europe. We have so many alumni working for ESA, working for CNES, all the European space agencies. Some are working for Airbus, Defense and Space. Some are starting a space company like Spire. And it's the same in Asia. We have successful alumni in the Chinese space agencies, in the Japanese space agencies, at ISRO in India. We have many in the Middle East space agencies. Same thing in Africa. Earlier today, we heard from the CEO of SANSA in South Africa, who is an alum. The Director General of the Nigerian Space Agency is an alum of ISU, another one of my classmates. It was a good year. And we have so many more from Oceania in Australia and Latin America, of course. So on this slide, you can see just a few logos of the fascinating companies which hire space experts, but there are so many more. If you're interested to follow us on social media, we are, of course, on Facebook. We have various groups, including public ones that you can join. We are on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Flickr. A word on our ISU chancellors. The first one was Arthur C. Clarke. We were so proud of having him. Then followed by another figure of the space sector, Jean-Jacques Dordain, who was the DG, the General Director of the European Space Agency. We had Buzz Aldrin, I think that no one needs to introduce. We had him for 3 years as our chancellor, and he came several times to ISU in Strasbourg. And Pascale Ehrenfreud is our current chancellor, and we heard from her earlier today. She was until recently the DLR president. I'm coming to the end of my presentation. If you, when you apply to ISU programs, you can see the fees here for the various programs. Please note that we have scholarships available for most of these programs and for applicants from all countries. So please do not hesitate to apply. You have the deadlines here, 31st March for SSP, 15 March for MSS, 30 November for SHSSP for next year, 30 April for the CSP, and 19 March for the ESC in France. The deadline is a bit later for the other ESCs. And you have here our apply online link. And don't hesitate to drop me an email at admissions@isunet.edu if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I'll be in one of the breakout rooms if you have more questions. Thank you so much for your attention. Gary, over to you.
Nassim, thank you for the great overview. Nassim will be in the main room when we break out. So hopefully you will be able to have time with him and ask any question that you might have. Well, next, we're going to go to the second part of the way that we've set up this program. And it was, we thought it might be important that you hear from the alumni about the effect that ISU has had on their lives since they attended. And because we see it every time that we go. And so this is it will only be 5 of our alumni, but 5 very special people. But you can also multiply that by the many thousands of alumni we have that we stay in touch with continually. But first I want to introduce Katrina Meligrana, because Katrina and I have put together the concept for the ISU Discover Americas. So we thought we'd try to reach out to people that we thought would be interesting from an American point of view or the Americas point of view to introduce you to this amazing organization that ISU is. So Katrina first took the executive space course in 2018. That was her first experience with ISU. And then she took, she liked it. So she'll tell you how she liked it or not, but she took the space studies program in 2019 in the Netherlands. And then she has become so interested in ISU that she became the course manager for the executive space course that we have in Seattle every year for this most recent one in 2020. She's an attorney and currently an air and space law advanced LLM candidate at Leiden University. And she's actually speaking to us today from Leiden or from somewhere in the Netherlands. Anyway, please, Katrina, it's up to you.
Hey, thanks, Gary. Can you guys hear me? Yep. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that SSP 19, when I took it, was in Strasbourg. So I got the opportunity to spend some time on the Central Campus, which was very, very cool. So yes, I just wanted to share a bit about how ISU has changed my life and why I can't recommend it enough. So up until a few years ago, I was practicing law in a very typical way, different law firms, and I was billing hours. And in 2018, I realized it was time to pursue my passion of space, but I had no idea where to begin. So I was researching, and I started to research the educational backgrounds of the scientists that are at this facility called High Seas, which is like an off-world analog project in Hawaii. And I kept coming across this school in their resumes called International Space University. And at first I was thinking, that can't be a real place. And then I saw all the people that had attended. And then I saw that Buzz Aldrin had been the past chancellor. So I knew the place was special. And I was living in Seattle at the time. And I saw that ISU was offering a week-long course there at the Museum of Flight That's called the Executive Space Course. And the description of it seemed to fit my goals perfectly. So I registered and then I attended, like Gary said, in October 2018. So it was incredible. I learned all things space in the 3 I's way that ISU does. But really importantly, I learned that I didn't need to start my education over to enter the space industry. I learned that lawyers and policymakers are an essential part of the space industry and the future of it. And I was really impressed by my classmates. I met people from Blue Origin, from NASA, from the Norwegian Space Agency, for example. And the lecturers and the faculty were really good. So I was definitely hooked, and it didn't take me long to apply for the Space Studies program for that summer in Strasbourg. So at that point, I spent an intense and amazing 9 weeks in Strasbourg with brilliant people from all over the world. So many of us are still in daily contact. And actually, I've met some of my best friends in that program. The connections to the space industry are really incomparable, and the faculty and lecturers will always assist you in any way they can. I've been honored to list them as references, and even more honored to have a faculty member who's here with us, Su-Yin Tan, Dr. Su-Yin Tan, write a letter of recommendation for me to the program at Leiden that I'm in. So one more connection to Leiden. The professor, Tanya Mason-Juan, is the space law professor at Leiden, and she was the chair of the Law, Policy, and Economics department during my SSP, and she really helped me see my potential and really gave me the confidence to apply at Leiden and keep pursuing the space law and policy. So I am succeeding in my pursuit to become a space policy analyst, researcher, and advisor, and I'm so thankful that I found ISU, because I don't think my path, I know my path would not be the same, and certainly not as exciting or as fun. So becoming part of the ISU network and community has been life-changing. Thank you for letting me tell my story.
Thank you very much, Katrina. And Katrina, as well as everyone else, will be in one of the rooms later to talk to her in detail. Well, our next guest is going to be Andy Aldrin. And he's an alumni of the SSP in 2001. But importantly, he is the founder and director of the ISU Center for Space Entrepreneurship at the Florida Institute of Technology that you've heard a little bit about. And that he'll talk about his ISU experience, and he'll talk about the commercial space program that he puts on every year at the Florida Space Coast, and that it's also connected with the Kennedy Space Center. So Andy, if you would like to talk about your
it's a pleasure. Bill, I hope you're coming next. I thought you had this slot, but that's okay. We can adjust. So
I'm sorry,
about
it's my fault. Bill, I'll introduce you next.
No problem. I got the stage now, and I'm not giving it up. First thing, a couple of words about ISU SSP. I was class of 2001, which, if you may know, is an interesting year. Anyway, just the experience of ISU, it kind of combines 3 things. It's like summer camp, graduate school, and a proposal all wrapped up into one. It's an absolutely amazing life-changing experience. And I will say, in my own personal experience, I was kind of in a little bit of a transition from being a researcher, a Sovietologist, in fact, to working in space industry. And when I went to ISU, I was living in a cubicle at Boeing. Within 2 years, maybe 3 years, I was a pretty senior executive at Boeing, sort of the right-hand man to the general manager. And it wasn't luck, it was ISU. So I am absolutely committed to the program. I love the network, really the family of ISU. And so I was super excited to have the opportunity to create a program in the US. And this is something that really, the initiative for it came from ISU. ISU wanted to have a program in the US that was focused on commercial space. And what we do is different. We've got kind of a special niche. And so I'll describe some of the things that we do and why it's different. The first thing is we're more of a traditional program. It's part of Florida Tech. It's part of our regular curriculum. And so with that, you get more of a classical, if you will, education. Each class is designed to be run over an entire semester. So you've got 45, we're required by our accreditation to have 45 contact hours. There's a good deal of theory in it. And the way we built the whole program was as a graduate certificate program, but the idea is that students that are working on their MBA, that are working on aerospace engineering, other engineering disciplines, we've had policy people coming in, can use these 4 courses that we teach and blend them with their MBA, their engineering degree, to create kind of a tailored program similar to some things that we're doing at Florida Tech. But it's a great opportunity, but it's probably more of a classic academic. So another piece of being more, if you will, academic is we do research. It's more along the lines of policy and commercial industry emergence. And we've got several research projects that we're doing with Ken Davidian, who of course is another ISU alumni. And so that's also kind of an exciting part. The 4 courses that we teach are policy and law, which I lead. We bring in real lawyers. So maybe Katrina, you can come and talk to us. Henry Hertzfeld from the George Washington University has been doing law. Maybe you can co-do some things with Henry on that. There's a program and the policy and law class specializes in looking at different countries through a National Space Innovation Systems network. The second class is commercial programs, which is really a detailed market analysis, going through space markets, kind of market by market, into just more than the numbers, but really understanding the underlying dynamics of those markets. And I teach that course as well. Ken Davidian jumps in and does a few things. Third course is technology and systems, and this will look very similar to some other ISU programs, not surprisingly, because Chris Welch teaches that program along with Angie Buckley from the Aerospace Corporation, who's a former dean. And then finally, kind of the capstone of the whole thing is space entrepreneurship. And we're very fortunate that Greg Autry, who was just nominated as a NASA CFO, fortunately or unfortunately, due to the administration change, he doesn't have that job. The good news for us is Greg will be there teaching. The way we run the program, the first year we ran it as an intensive 6-week program, and it was hard because it's not, you've got to do graduate level reading. So you can count on, reading more or less a book for every lecture session is what we'll cover in a lot of these classes. It was tough, and we were going to stretch it out last year, but then COVID hit. And what we ended up doing last year, we proposed to do a hybrid program, 8 weeks online, 2 weeks in Florida. We couldn't go to Florida, but we're going to do that this year. And here's why. One of the couple of amazing things happened by going online. First thing was we brought students in from places we would not have had. We had a student from Sri Lanka. We had students from Africa. We had students from Europe. The other thing was a lot of these students were actually working full time. And you can count on it every day. You're going to have 3 hours of classwork, a combination of synchronous and asynchronous work. Then we do 2 weeks in Florida. And the 2 weeks of Florida is where we're going to be touring all of the facilities that are there. And there's a lot of action in Florida. We will see a launch. You can't go 2 weeks in Florida without seeing a launch. The first year we had a night launch of the SpaceX Falcon Heavy, which was pretty amazing. And we will get together with the people that are at the launches. And then I guess the coolest thing is the whole time we're in Florida, we're at the KSC, Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. And so, it's a phenomenal place. Literally, you'd walk out of the classroom and you would be underneath the shuttle Atlantis. So it was an incredible experience that students have. We bring in about 20 guest lecturers. And one of the great things about going online is we were able to bring in the leading people in the US space industry, CEOs of big companies, small companies, leading people at NASA. We had 2 associate administrators, but we bring them in exactly where it fits in the lecture because we could do it online. So anyway, it's kind of different from other pieces of it, but I think it's a great fit with, sort of the overall ISU solar system of programs. Anyway, thank you all for letting me talk about it. If you haven't figured out, I'd be happy to talk about it more. I've got an hour in the breakout session, so come and talk to me.
Thank you, Andy. Sorry to keep you on your toes. And
Gary, this is ISU. It's nothing if not flexible.
It's certainly my problem. I printed out my notes in a weird way. Bill, I'm so sorry. And next I'm going to introduce Bill Hamm. He's originally from South Korea, and he's an alumni of the Master's Space Studies course in 2013 in Strasbourg. But importantly, he's been a part of the ISU as part of a board member of the Canadian alumni of the ISU Association, which is probably we have these alumni associations that keep people networking together. and many of them are regional, and we're working to make sure that the global also stay together. And so, Bill, I do apologize, but thank you.
No problem, Garrett. Thanks. Thanks for the kind intro. So completing my MSS back in 2013, it just feels like yesterday. It's surprising how time flies. It was that memorable and unique that I still appreciate the opportunity I had, and that helped my life and career the past 7 years and so on. So before ISU, coming from Earth and planetary science background, I knew I had a passion in the space field, but didn't really know what I need to do, like which direction or which field I need to specialize in. So I was like a lost satellite in the deep, dark space. However, through some research, I looked up space academic course in Google and found out about ISU programs and the MSS program. It provided me the tools and resources that helped me to connect the dots and navigate which career direction I need to get into. So during my time at MSS, I was able to get advice and support from the faculty members and gain a lot of knowledge and experience about space. And thanks to that, I was able to find out which career direction I need to get into, which is space applications in the geographic information systems. So this is how I was able to pursue my internship at the Applied Geomatics Research Laboratory at the University of Waterloo in Canada, thanks to the recommendation from the faculty member, Dr. Angie Buckley, and with Dr. Suing Tan, who was the supervisor for my undergraduate study in geomatics. So my internship experience through MSS program helped me establish professional links in the space apps, and then now working as a research associate in the laboratory with Dr. Suing Tan. And I work with people from diverse backgrounds on the day-to-day basis, and ISU's 3I philosophy and experience definitely helped me to foster the teamwork experience in dynamic team environment. One thing I want to add is that MSS is not all about sitting down in the classroom and learn from PowerPoints. It's also about many hands-on activities, professional visits, and culture nights you will experience throughout the MSS program. So it's a really active and engaging experience you will have. Doesn't matter where you're from or what is your expertise. Doesn't matter if you're students or experienced professionals. MSS will provide a bridge to support you in career advancement within or into the space sector, like myself, as an example. More importantly, you will have a lifelong friends and network in the global space community out of the program where you can reach out to. It's amazing how many of them are leaders and engineers in the space sector making the changes today. And I still get in contact with a lot of friends from MSS, and also recently had a virtual catch up last month for Happy New Year. So you will make lifelong friends and family in the global space community. One more thing about MSS as a bonus, you get to enjoy the beautiful city Strasbourg and Europe during the MSS program. So that's a once in a lifetime experience for me, and I still remember those memories as vivid as like yesterday. Hope my testimonials gave you a bit of tips and help, and I'll be in Zoom room number 2 for any questions. Over back to you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Bill. And you brought out the fact how amazing Strasbourg is. So I invite anyone who's here to at least visit ISU in Strasbourg, because it is an amazing city. Next, I would like to introduce Su-Yen Tan. You've heard her mentioned before. She's a major member of our support team at ISU. She's a senior lecturer of geomatics of the geomatics program and a teaching fellow of the Faculty of Environment and the director of Applied Geomatics Research Laboratory at the University of Waterloo in Canada. But the amazing thing that I know her from, she's a part of the ISU Global Faculty, and she's been chair of the Academic Council. We look at the academics of all our programs very seriously, and we listen to all the student feedback every year about what we need to do to stay current and to improve. And Su-Yen Tan has been one of our major movers in this area. She teaches also at the SSP, the SHSSP, and the MSS programs. So she's all throughout ISU. She knows what's happening and she contributes constantly to what we're doing. And she's also an alumni from SSP 03. So Su-Yen, please.
Great, thanks very much, Gary. And thanks, Gary, Katrina, for the invitation to this event. I'm having a lot of fun so far. So I'm going to talk about the Space Studies Program, SSP, which is an intense 2-month professional development course for postgraduate students and professionals. So the SSP, as you've heard from Goktuk, is a 9-week residential program. It's hosted in different geographical locations each year, and it has a very interdisciplinary curriculum. You'll hear about the 3 I's again and again. It has an emphasis on international cooperation as well. So for the SSP, if you're interested, it has these 3 phases to it. The very first is the core lecture series, where the entire class is together and hears from international experts and talks about all sorts of subjects related to space. Then the class gets broken down into departments, and these departments explore subjects of mutual interest, and there's more of a specialization that they hear from experts. And then last is the team projects, where everyone works together in an international and intercultural environment and to really solve a common problem. So getting back to my own journey though, I am an ISU Global faculty member, as you heard from Gary, and I've been teaching in the SSP program for more than 15 years. And prior to that, I was an SSP participant myself. So I attended SSP 03 when Juan de Dalmal was actually my director at the time. And this was hosted in Strasbourg, France at the Central Campus building when it was opened for the very first time. So my encounter with ISU was purely accidental. I was studying at Boston University in the US for my first master's degree, and I came across this Canadian scholarship program from CSA, the Canadian Space Agency, for ISU. And my expertise was in remote sensing, so that's using technologies to look back at Earth and not outwards towards space. But I received a full scholarship, and then I thought, why not? Why not spend a summer in France? So the first person I met when I arrived in Strasbourg, I remember really vividly, was the SSP academic coordinator at the time, Marla Milne, and we became good friends. So we called each other the Canadian Prairie Girls because we're from the same region. And she told me that the program would change my life. And little did I know that she was right. The SSP program is very intense. And I was very daunted by all the space enthusiasts in the room because I really didn't consider myself to be one. Peter Diamandis, one of our 3 ISU founders, actually attended the program for the first few weeks, and he interacted closely with all of the participants. And he simply lit up the room with his passion and enthusiasm. So I remember feeling really out of place when Peter Diamandis went to the front of the room and asked the class who would go on a mission to space if there was only a 50% chance of returning to Earth. And everyone stood up in the room, except for me and my Japanese classmate and best friend at the time, Satoko Abiko. And then Peter then started to gradually up this percentage all the way to 100% chance of not being able to return home. Everyone still remained standing. It was at that point that I realized that I was in a room full of crazy people. And so unlike others, I didn't know much about space. And as an environmental scientist and geographer, I felt out of my depth. Nevertheless, I soon found that the story of space is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. There's a place for everyone. So I soon found myself playing a critical role in all sorts of SSP activities, from being the lead designer of the robot in the robot competition to spontaneously co-instructing a remote sensing workshop at the nearby Surti Institute during professional visits. And our team project was on abrupt climate change. So I turned out to be the go-to expert on the topic as an environmental scientist. So like other ISU alum, I also made my best friends of the lifetime that summer. as well as meeting many mentors and people who are greatly admired and respected, and who I really am proud today to call my friends. So the impact of ISU on my life has mainly been one of inspiration. It's inspiration to see the world differently, inspiration to see beyond our Earth's orbit, and inspiration to understand different cultures. But most of all, ISU has taught me how to have an open mind, question my assumptions, and to problem solve in new and creative ways. So since then, I've remained involved in ISU and often lead the Space Applications Department in the SSP program. I've also served on the Academic Council. What I thought would be a one summer stint has stretched out to nearly 2 decades long, with the journey still going strong. So many of us feel the need to give back to ISU and to support future alum. And I've personally felt a real responsibility to keep the heritage, vision, memories, and culture of ISU going for generations to come. The message of space is one of cooperation, of not seeing boundaries or borders, to look up and towards the stars. So this is a common message that ISU propagates both internally and externally. So my advice to all of you who have joined us today is, well, join us. So join our community in spreading this message of peace, unity, exploration, and adventure. Whether you're looking to simply learn more about space as I did, or whether you're looking for a way to get into the space industry, change careers, or augment your existing career, there's something for everyone in ISU, from short courses, summer programs, to longer degree programs. ISU will not only augment your experiences and career, but also provide you new insights and perspectives. I personally hope to meet many of you in ISU programs one day, and I hope that we can continue to learn from each other while looking towards the stars and beyond. So I look forward to interacting with some of you in the breakout rooms, and thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Su Yin. You put into words what all of us feel, so thank you so much. We have one more speaker, and I'm happy to introduce Garrett Turner. So he is a civil and environmental engineer at NASA Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley in California. And he's a recent alumni. In fact, actually, he was in his class last year at this time for the SSP in 2020 in Adelaide. So Garrett, please take it away.
Thank you, Gary. Gary was actually the mentor for our team project last year. So I have to let you know, I'm a civil engineer, an environmental engineer who's worked for NASA as both a contractor and civil servant for 30 years and never really had anything to do with space. I was working on drinking water and wastewater and contaminated groundwater, and got an opportunity to apply to ISU. Now, I have to disclose this. I applied for SSP 19. NASA had some problems with that, and they said, we can't send you. Due to problems with the State Department, you can't go. It's like, well, that's not so good. They said, but what do you think about going to the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program? I said, that sounds good. They're like, it's 5 weeks in Australia. It starts in January. Like, well, I can't go to what I want to. Let's do this. It turned out to be one of the best choices I'd made, especially this year. I'm noticing that winter happens even in San Francisco. Australia is lovely in January and February, and it's a wonderful place to be. But mostly what I enjoyed was actually learning about space. Because you'd think working for NASA, I'd be working, know all kinds of things about space. Well, that just wasn't true. So the morning classes, to bring everybody up to the same level, even though I'm an engineer, I was learning just as much and just as quickly. We had NASA's chief scientist, Jim Green, an amazing person who came in and gives us inspirational lectures, who then would join us for lunch. And you could ask him questions that you didn't have there. He would join us for the evening activities. And every night, I guess 4 nights a week or 5 nights a week, we actually had workshops that went into the evening till 9 or 10 at night. There is no sleep at SHSSP. They give you 1 day off on the weekend unless you want to go do some of the other social activities. But, you know, learning from these experts, you know, Su Yin was there during our 3rd week of lectures, and, you know, remote sensing. I'm an environmental person. I understand basic details about it, but not from actually running and looking down. It's more what's here on the ground. And so I was concerned that when we got to our team project, which was, you know, lunar agriculture, we were building a farm on the moon that had to be sustainable. It had to be able to we got to set some parameters, 10 people, and provide all of their food and all of their nutritional requirements for a year. Well, I work in sustainability, so this seemed interesting all of a sudden. Well, I was working with people with medical experience, with policy experience, and lawyers, people who work with the Australian Space Agency, and kind of defined, you know, can we actually use things there on the planet or on the moon? It's like, yes, we can. I ended up on the farm end of it, figuring out how to reuse water, because every drop of water is really, really heavy to lift off the planet. So we need to reuse all the water that's there. So we came up with a full reuse system for water. We figured out how to separate fecal matter, use it as fertilizer, and put it all together. We came up with a cricket ranch so that we could have a form of protein that wasn't just plant-based, all of it together. And it was amazing. We, in that 4-week period, became experts in lunar farming. We didn't realize that. Since that time, since we did our presentation, we submitted 2 abstracts with our papers, one to IAC. We did a virtual presentation because IAC didn't happen this year, the International Astronautical Conference, but we did a virtual presentation working across time zones between Europe, Australia, and the US. So somebody was always getting the bad time. Put together our virtual presentation, submitted it. We submitted a separate one to the American Society of Civil Engineers, something I've belonged to for over 25 years, the first paper I've submitted, and we'll be presenting that in a virtual meeting in April. It's just a chance to expand your boundaries, work with people across many different cultures, and we continue to get together. And anytime Gary or anybody says, can you come and talk about SHSSP? I always say yes, because it changed my life and it will change all of yours.
Thank you so much, Garrett. I really appreciate it. So now you've heard from some alumni, you've heard from the leadership, you've heard more about the programs. What we really wanted you to do is now go to the different rooms as we open them up and ask questions about that you have, or just get to know the people. It doesn't have to be about ISU. You heard what they said. Maybe you're interested in some part of their career or something else, because they're great people to get to know. But before we do that, I want to really thank all our speakers. Amazing. Gives you in a very concise, you can see I sped everyone up. So there's a lot more to tell when you get a chance. So please go talk to them. I definitely want to thank Bertram Goldman, who put the whole concept for Discover ISU together. And so you know him. And then there's a third part next weekend for the Pacific Asian area. So please, if you're interested in hearing that, you can also tap into that one. I also want to thank the people who are doing all the IT behind this. And I want to tell you a little bit about them. Tommaso Tonina is one of our IT, and actually he's helped me quite a lot in answering all my questions on this activity. And he's an alumnus of SSP 19, also with Katrina. Now that I remember it was in Strasbourg. And he's a space engineer, and he has research experiments with space experiments. And he's been recently a teaching assistant there in Strasbourg. and helping with the MSS program. And then Kristen Rozenak. She is an alumnus of SSP 13, which was also in Strasbourg. And she's a teaching assistant for the virtual programs, the interactive space program last summer, and the executive program we did for the Americas that was virtual this fall with Katrina. And she's a geologist and an outreach administrator for the Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences at McGill University in Canada. And Rishi Khan, who was a participant at SHSSP in 18 in Adelaide. And he's a graduate, has a graduate certificate in space studies from the University of South Australia. And his background is in mechanical engineering. And now he's at the University of Toronto in Canada. So these are the people who are the backbone to make this all work. And I want to thank them for that.